Paula. And I'm going to give you a little brief update on what happened at yesterday's city council meeting. That was on May 6th. And I'll just go through a little bit of what the agenda was and what happened. So one of the first things that happened, we had our 5-year pavement management plan that we approved. It's already been approved, but they wanted to bring an update. And you may have been seeing up on the hillside and in the Cherry Hill area, we were repaving some of the streets, and that's going to continue on for the next 5 years till we get all the streets taken care of. We also approved the industrial hemp processing facility that's going to go at the end of Lemonwood Drive, and that one will be inside because later on in the evening we did put a ban on hemp growing, but this is a processing plant that will be completely filtered, and they will be processing for CBD oil. Moving on in the agenda, we granted an easement. There were some track maps that needed to be worked around for the Limonera project out on Harvest, and those were pretty mundane issues that we agreed to do. We also we declared the results from the election for the treasurer, and that result came from the county, and we approved that final verdict, and that is now a appointed position and not an elected position. We then moved into public hearings, and the first public hearing was the prohibition of hemp growing within the city limits. The county already has one outside. You can't grow within so many feet of the city limits. We continued that and are not allowing any hemp growing, not the processing, but the growing, where we have the smells that you may have seen on Highway 126 and out on Central. And most of the cities, I think there's only about 3 cities in the county that do not have a ban on it. But we don't have that much agricultural growth within the city limits, but we did put a ban on that. We then moved on to the Watershed Protection District benefit assessment. That needed to be appointed by the city council. So it's part of the stormwater protection plan that's required by the state and the county. And that is an assessment of $6.65 per benefit assessment unit within the city of Santa Paula. That doesn't quite pay for all the street sweeping, but it's not within our jurisdiction to up that. We just had to approve it from the county jurisdiction. Lastly, under the consent calendar or action calendar, there was a COPS grant. And that's our yearly grant that we get. And that's the police, for the police Los Piedras Park Community Policing Building. We get approximately we use about $157,000 for that. And we use almost $20,000 for our firearms training within the department. That all is designated monies to the police department from a COPS grant. It was kind of a lot of items on the agenda. We then went to a presentation by the Harvest at Limonera from their bond counsel. They needed to produce bonds. Terry Moss, who actually was one of our bond counsel for water, also did this for Harvest at Limonera, and we will be part of that. There's really nothing for the city. It's basically for the Melrose in Limonera. We heard the presentation. Bonds will be sold. Municipal bonds will be sold for that portion. Most likely the end of May, early June is what they told us. And the bond market is a little slow, but they're waiting for a good date to put this out on the market. We did apply for a build grant. That is to redo Harvard from Peck all the way to the end of Telegraph. We applied for that last year. We didn't get it, but there's more monies in the federal government this year. Only 2 cities within the state of California actually got the grant. There were 600 applications, and about actually got it throughout the nation. We met with the people that reviewed the grant. They gave us some pointers on how to get a little stronger, and we are reapplying this actually middle of May, another week and a half it's due, and we will have that application into the federal government, and hopefully we'll be able to be successful this year and be able to pave Harvard. One of the most important items, and something that everybody was curious to see, was our third quarter budget financial review. That came back, and we're still trying to assess the financial crisis that's happening because of the COVID and the lack of business within the whole world, not just the state of California, not just city of Santa Paula, but everywhere. And the report to us was we're about 1.3 million short of our in our budget for this year. There was a report that the Measure T committee had found that there was a 500,000 rollover from last year's Measure T, and they recommend that we use that to help balance the budget towards the end of this fiscal year. We did not take that action yesterday. It will be coming back to us once we have a full breakdown on what savings the city is able to incur within their own departments. So each department went through, tried to cut down on their expenses, did away with some training, did away with outside training, and also basically tighten their belts a little bit. We did put a freeze on hiring, so any vacant positions, there will not be new hirings. So with that, we're trying to balance that $1.3 million shortfall. If we use the Measure T money, it'd be $800,000. We've looked at furloughs to see if that's part of the negotiations. So I'm not sure I can talk much about that, other than we are looking at furloughs within the city. We can't make any promises about laying off people yet. We don't know how badly it's going to be. All these are simply estimates, and we did get the first payment from first part of March, so it really wasn't affected by COVID yet, because of the shutdown didn't happen until the middle of March. So the next payment will tell us exactly how much it really is going to affect us, but it looks like a lot of our tax dollars are going to be gone. We're not going to be seeing the type of income that we anticipated. And the report was we were doing very well. Back in January and February, we were much ahead of the curve. We were well ahead of what we needed for our budget to balance. And unfortunately, this worldwide epidemic hit and everything got shut down. So that was the most important thing for me, was really seeing where we are, because it affects the lives of every citizen and every employee here in Santa Paula. The last two things on the agenda, we took a look, and a couple of weeks ago, we had a study session on our financial policies. Basically, we want to be prudent, we want to be reasonable in our policy. So we put together an investment policy, a reserve policy, and a fiscal policy. And those came back to us after we had a study session with that a couple of weeks ago, made some input, made some changes, and those changes came back to us yesterday for ratification, and they were approved by City Council. So all the changes that we made, investment policies as to be prudent. We didn't want to be jumping into Bitcoin or anything like that. They're all substantial, solid investment policies, and we decided that was a conservative way to go. The last thing on the agenda, actually, many of us we had a new schedule for balancing the budget and presentation to City Council, as a few City Council members were going to be gone the last week in June with this shut down. Everybody's vacation has been changed, so we are back on the regular schedule. We are going to be first and third Wednesdays in June, and we also put in for the last week in June, in case we didn't get the budget balance. We did talk a little bit that budget, it's going to be as educated as we can, not knowing exactly the true numbers, as this is fluid in nature and everything is changing. So that was pretty much it. We spent from 5:30 with negotiations, and then went on to open city council meeting, and we went through quite a long agenda and took care of all the business. So with that, I'm open to questions, Peggy. So what do you want?